let's unpack this. Maybe forget everything you think you know about sheep for just a second.
Okay.
Like, did you know they have rectangular pupils? It's kind of weird, right?
Rectangular? Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Apparently, it gives them a wider field of vision, helps them spot predators. But that little fact, it's actually a pretty good jumping off point for what we're diving into today.
Ah, okay. I see where you're going.
We're exploring that, ancient relationship, the one between sheep and their shepherds. Seems simple, but it's surprisingly deep.
And how that connects to safety leadership today.
Exactly. What can that dynamic teach us about being, well, truly effective safety leaders?
And we're drawing from an article, right? The Good Shepherd from Incident Prevention.
That's the one. It uses this really powerful analogy and introduces a specific framework too.
Right.
So our mission here for this deep dive isn't just to skim the surface. We want to really get into the insights from the analogy and the safety leadership model.
Yeah, help you maybe see your own role a bit differently.
And pick up some practical ideas, hopefully, for guiding and protecting your team better.
Okay, let's start setting the scene then. The core analogy in the article, it's straightforward, but quite potent. Sheep are valuable assets.
Right. Think about your team, your colleagues. Incredibly valuable people. And like sheep, they need protecting.
They absolutely do. And the article points out some sheep characteristics that make this analogy work so well.
Yeah, they can be. Well, let's be honest, easy to get lost sometimes, right? Wander off the path a bit.
Uh-huh. They definitely need direction and feedback. Correction, too, when they stray.
And they make mistakes, like all of us. The article mentions this specific thing, a cast sheep.
Oh, yeah, the one that rolled over and can't get back up?
Exactly. Completely helpless, totally reliant on the shepherd to step in. It really drives home the point. Sheep need good shepherds. Desperately.
So the shepherd's role is pretty clear then. Provide, lead, and maybe most importantly, protect the flock.
Protect, yes.
But here's a key part the article really stresses. It's not a one-way street. It's about interdependence.
What do you mean?
Well, the shepherd needs sheep that actually follow them, and that following comes from trust.
Ah, okay. So if the sheep don't trust and follow.
Then the shepherd's just, wandering around alone. They're not really leading anyone. It's just a walk in the park, basically.
That trust point is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how does this shepherd stuff translate into, concrete actions for safety leaders?
This is where the article brings in the C5 safety leadership model. It's from the Incident Prevention Institute's Frontline Training Program.
C5, okay.
Yep, 5 key qualities. They all start with C, and they mirror what makes a good shepherd. You've got competence, commitment, caring, courage, and credibility.
Competence, commitment, caring, courage, credibility. Got it. And these are the foundation.
Pretty much. The article presents them as the bedrock of great safety leadership. Let's dig into each one with the shepherd analogy in mind.
That sounds good. Where do we start?
First up, competence. Simple definition. How well can you actually do the job? Your skills, your know-how.
Right. So for the shepherd, this means being a skilled navigator, yeah? Finding those hidden pastures, the good water sources.
Exactly. And the article talks about their staff. It's not just a stick for walking.
No, it's a tool used situationally, strategically.
For support, sometimes. For gentle correction or guidance if a sheep wanders off.
Nudging them back.
And yeah, even for defense against threats. Plus, they need that technical skill to sort out problems in tough conditions.
Okay, so applying that to safety leadership.
Yeah.
It's more than just knowing the rules then.
Much more. It's having the skill to handle complex situations, to use your own tools, communication, training, maybe even stop work authority smartly for support and correction.
So your competence is what makes your team see you as a reliable guide when things get tricky.
That's it. It builds that initial layer of trust.
Okay. Competence is knowing the job. But knowing isn't always enough, is it? What makes you use that competence, especially when it's hard?
That leads perfectly into the next C, commitment. The article defines this as your passion for the goals, yours and the team's, and how willing you are to invest in yourself and in others.
The shepherd example here is pretty intense, isn't it? Their whole life is often nomadic, devoted to the flock.
And that image of searching for the one lost sheep out of 100.
Yeah, that's powerful.
It's not just ticking a box. It shows a deep level of commitment, right? Knowing and caring about each individual sheep's well-being.
So for a safety leader, that translates to what? Really dedicating yourself to the team's safety.
Unwavering dedication. investing in their development, making sure they have what they need, and crucially, actively going after those who might be straying from safe practices.
Not just letting them drift off.
No, bring them back. Maybe they're complacent. Maybe they just don't understand something. Your commitment drives you to make that extra effort.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Competence, commitment. What's next?
Next is caring. And the article puts this one right in the middle of the list for a reason.
Oh, what is that?
Because it suggests everything else kind of revolves around it. Caring is fundamentally about how much you want to help prevent harm and encourage growth in your people.
How much you want to help.
Exactly, your intent.
Yeah.
The shepherd analogy here is about, well, the ultimate sacrifice, being willing to lay down your life for the flock.
Wow, okay. That's a high bar.
It is, but in a safety context, it means that intense focus on preventing harm, that genuine desire to see your team succeed safely. The article argues that if you truly care, the other stuff becomes almost automatic.
Like if you care, you'll naturally want to be competent and committed and courageous.
Exactly. It fuels the other C's. Which brings us neatly to courage.
Okay, courage. Not just about being brave.
Not just absence of fear. The article defines it more by how often you act, especially when action is difficult or uncomfortable.
So frequency of action.
Yeah. The shepherd example is pretty literal. Facing down actual wolves. That's brave, reactive courage. We get that.
Right. Fangs and everything.
But our wolves, as safety leaders, they look different, don't they?
Definitely. More like difficult conversations, stressful deadlines, budget cuts.
Exactly. Difficult people, challenging situations, limited resources, uncertainty. Those are our wolves.
And courage is acting despite them.
Yes. And it can be small things. Like the article mentions just turning on your camera in a virtual meeting to build connection. That takes a little courage sometimes.
True. Or it could be huge, like using stop work authority, especially if you're new to the team.
Definitely a big act of courage. And here's a crucial link the article makes. Courage and credibility are tied together.
How so?
How you respond not just to successes, but especially to errors, to near misses, that takes courage. Speaking up, acting decisively, those moments heavily influence how trustworthy your team finds you.
So your response shapes their perception.
Profoundly, which leads to that simple, powerful call to action. See something, say something, do something. Every time, that requires a measure of courage.
See it, say it, do it. Got it. Which leaves us with the last C, the foundation.
The bedrock, as the article calls it, credibility. This is purely about how trustworthy you are.
Trust. Back to that again.
It all comes back to trust. Remember the interdependence. Sheep follow the shepherd's voice. Why?
Because they trust them.
Exactly. Not because the shepherd has a title or a bigger staff. It's because they perceive the shepherd as consistently being competent, committed, caring, and courageous.
So that trust is earned through demonstrating the other C's.
Day in, day out. And that's the big takeaway for safety leaders. Your team chooses to trust you, to follow your guidance, to speak up when they see something because they see you living these C5 qualities.
Credibility isn't automatic with the job title, then?
Not at all. It's earned. And it's fragile. You're constantly building it or, unfortunately, potentially eroding it with every action.
Wow. Okay, so bringing it all together. The shepherd analogy, the C5 model. It's quite a framework.
It really is. And the article throws in a quote from Andy Stanley, the leadership author, that kind of acts as a C5 barometer. Leaders who don't listen will eventually be surrounded by people with nothing to say.
Oof. That hits home.
Doesn't it? Think about your own team. How freely do people really communicate, share concerns, near misses, ideas?
Yeah, that level of openness or maybe the lack of it.
It's a direct reflection of the culture and the relationships you've built. And those relationships stand or fall based on how your team perceives your C5 qualities, especially caring and credibility.
So silence can be a warning sign.
A huge one. There's another quote used from Pastor Charles Swindoll, particularly relevant when thinking about facing those wolves.
Okay.
Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond.
10% what happens, 90% how you respond.
And that ties straight back into courage, doesn't it? Your response to the challenge, the difficult person, the mistake. That 90% is where your C5 qualities truly show up, or don't.
It's all about the response.
So much of it is. At the end of the day, the core idea stands. Sheep need shepherds. Shepherds need sheep. It's dynamic, interdependent.
And that relationship, when it works well, it's like servant leadership.
Yeah.
Built on those C5 traits.
Precisely. And the upshot is, If you consciously challenge yourself to improve your competence, deepen commitment, show you care, act with courage, build that credibility.
You become a better safety leader.
Fundamentally, it enhances your leadership, improves the safety culture, strengthens trust and relationships, and ultimately boosts team performance because people feel safer, more valued, more guided.
It's kind of amazing how this simple, ancient relationship gives us such a solid framework, the C5 model, for today's safety challenges.
It really does. Focusing on building competence, commitment, caring, courage, and credibility. It's not just theory. It's about cultivating the qualities you need to genuinely guide and protect your team.
Your valuable assets.
Those valuable assets every day, making sure they feel seen, safe, and supported.
So as you, our listener, kind of mull over this deep dive, maybe keep that Swindle quote in mind.
Yeah, that 10-90 split. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond.
Think about the challenges coming up for you this week. Your potential wolves, or maybe a cash sheep situation. How could consciously focusing on courage or caring or any of the C5 qualities, how could that shape your 90%?
How will it influence your response and ultimately the outcome for you and your team? Definitely something to think about.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Utility Business Media and its employees. It is strongly recommended that you discuss any actions or policy changes with your company management prior to implementation.